fill out our taxes on a postcard. And when we do that, we should abolish the IRS. We're going to rein in the EPA and the CFPB and the alphabet soup of federal agencies that have descended like locusts on farmers and ranchers and small businesses, killing jobs all across this country. And we're going to stop amnesty and secure the borders and end sanctuary cities and end welfare for those here illegally. And the effect of all of that is that we will see millions upon millions of high-paying jobs. We'll see wages going up for everybody. We'll see young people coming out of school having 2, 3, 4, 5 job opportunities. We'll see morning in America again. Morning in America. Second critical issue at the heart of this election is freedom. You know, just a few weeks ago, Justice Scalia's passing underscored the stakes of this election. It is not one but two branches of government that hang in the balance. We are one left-wing justice away from a radical 5-justice liberal majority, the likes of which this country has never seen. We are one liberal justice away from a Supreme Court that would strip away the religious liberty of every American. We are one liberal justice away from a Supreme Court that would effectively erase the Second Amendment from the Bill of Rights. We are one liberal Supreme Court justice away from the Supreme Court making us subject to the authority of the World Court and the United Nations and international law and giving up U.S. sovereignty. Now, you know, a couple of debates ago, Hugh had asked all of us about the Supreme Court and religious liberty. And Donald Trump turned to me and he said, "Ted, I've known a lot more politicians than you have." Well, in that he's right. He's been supporting left-wing Democratic politicians for 40 years. I have no experience doing that. But Donald continued, he said, "Ted, when it comes to the Supreme Court, when it comes to religious liberty, you got to be prepared to compromise. You got to learn to work with the Democrats and go along to get along." Well, let me be very, very clear to the men and women of North Carolina. I will not compromise away your religious liberty. And I will not compromise away your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. The third critical issue in this election is security. For 7 years, we've seen a president that abandons and alienates our friends and allies, and that shows weakness and appeasement to our enemies. You know, again, two debates ago, Donald Trump turned to me and he explained if he were president, he would be neutral between Israel and the Palestinians. Well, let me be very, very clear. As president, I will not be neutral. America will stand unapologetically with the nation of Israel. And anybody who cannot tell the difference between our friends and our enemies, anyone who cannot tell the difference between the nation of Israel and Islamic terrorists who want to murder us, that raises serious questions about their fitness and judgment to be commander-in-chief. We've seen for 7 years the United States military weakened. We've seen readiness undermined. We've seen morale of our troops plummeting. But you know what? As a country, we've seen this before. We've seen another left-wing Democratic president, Jimmy Carter, weaken and undermine the military. And in 1981, Ronald Reagan came into office. And what did Reagan do? He passed tax reform and regulatory reform. He lifted the burdens on small businesses. We saw millions of new jobs created. It generated trillions in new revenue to the federal government. He used that money to rebuild the military, and we bankrupted the Soviet Union and won the Cold War. I intend to do the exact same thing with radical Islamic terrorism. We're going to repeal Obamacare, pass a flat tax, pull back the regulations. The economy will explode. We'll see millions of new jobs, trillions of new federal revenue, and we will use that revenue to rebuild this military so it remains the mightiest fighting force on the face of the planet. Will our military be governed by political correctness? We will have a commander-in-chief who stands up and says to the world, we will defeat radical Islamic terrorism. We'll have a president willing to utter the words, radical Islamic terrorism. And you know, one of the most shameful aspects of the last 7 years has been a president sending our fighting men and women into combat with rules of engagement so strict that their arms are tied behind their back, that they cannot fight, they cannot win, they cannot defend themselves. That is wrong. It is immoral. And mark my words, in January 2017, it will end. America has always been reluctant to use military force. We are slow to anger. But if and when military force is needed, we should use overwhelming force, kill the enemy, and then get the heck out! So we're 48 hours away from Election Day here in North Carolina. North Carolina is a battleground. Right now in North Carolina, Donald Trump and I are effectively tied. We are neck and neck here in the state of North Carolina. Now, let me talk for a minute to the 65 to 70% of Republicans here and at home who recognize that Donald Trump is not the best candidate for us to nominate against Hillary Clinton. That Donald loses to Hillary Clinton. If we nominate Donald, Hillary becomes president, and we lose the Supreme Court for a generation. We lose the Bill of Rights. Our kids are buried in debt, and their future is taken away. To those 65 to 70% of Republicans who recognize that, I want to tell you that all across North Carolina and all across this country, what we're seeing is Republicans coming together and uniting behind our campaign, because our campaign is the only campaign that has beaten Donald Trump over and over and over again, and that can and will beat Donald Trump and win this nomination. You know, this race started with 17 Republican candidates, a fantastic, diverse, dynamic, talented field. And yet, in the course of the race, it has narrowed. At this point, there are only two candidates who have any plausible path to the 1,237 delegates it takes to become the Republican nominee, Donald Trump and me. So now maybe some of y'all here, or maybe some of y'all at home, started out supporting somebody else.
Nope.
Maybe you started out supporting Jeb Bush or Chris Christie. Maybe you started out supporting Mike Huckabee or Rand Paul or Carly Fiorina or Ben Carson. Maybe you're thinking now of supporting Marco Rubio or John Kasich. Let me say, every one of those are good, honorable, decent people. They are people I like, they're people I respect, and yet none of them has any plausible path to beating Donald Trump and becoming the Republican nominee. And so if you have been supporting somebody else, let me tell you, we welcome you to our team. Come join us. Come on in. The water's fine. You know, we had 2 election days yesterday. We had the District of Columbia, and we had Wyoming. Now in D.C. there were 4 candidates. And I gotta tell you, according to Washington, D.C., I am dead last. And I gotta tell you, that result didn't surprise me at all. You know, if you have an election of lobbyists, they vote their interests. And they look at these candidates and say, holy cow, this Cruz guy, the gravy train is ending. But you know, when you get out of Washington, D.C., when you actually get to America, the reaction is just a little bit different. The state of Wyoming yesterday, we won the state of Wyoming. And we won with 66% of the vote. This Donald Trump fella, I see his name a lot on TV. You know what he got? 7.2%. North Carolina is going to speak to the whole country on Tuesday. You'll have a platform, you have a megaphone to speak to this nation. And I want to ask everyone here to vote for me on Tuesday 10 times. Now look, we're not Democrats. I'm not suggesting voter fraud. But if everyone here gets 9 other people to come out and vote on Tuesday, you will have voted 10 times. And let me tell you, maybe you're not old enough yet to vote. You know, if you get 10 other people to come vote on Tuesday, you will have voted 10 times before you turn 18. That's how we win. I want you to look at the men and women gathered here. If everyone here just gets 9 other people you are looking at gathered here today, about